Hello learners, I am teacher Juliet from Greenview Schools, Kamolu. I'll be taking you through religious education grade 8. You are welcome. So today our strand remains to be the Bible and our sub-strand will be leadership in Israel, and we are talking about King Saul. Under King Saul, we want to talk about the reason for kingship in Israel. We want to talk about the reasons for kingship in Israel. We want to know, why did the Israelites decide to have a king? We want to know the reason. Now, before we get to that, let's get to know the background of everything. But I want us to remind ourselves about what we learned in grade 7 about Moses, because Moses is the one who brought these people with the help of Joshua, led by God. He brought these people from Egypt to the promised land, which is Canaan. Now, these Israelites were here in the promised land that God had promised them, but they were led by God. And we had this person who was known as Moses, and he led them through the wilderness until they go to this place that they were. At that point, they were not grateful. Even in the wilderness, we know the story of how they were not grateful. Initially, these Israelites were being led by judges, and some of these judges included Moses and even Joshua. Their king, the king that they only knew was God, and they did not see this king. So they were worried. They were led by God from Egypt to Canaan by the help of Moses and Joshua. Now let's continue. Now that one we learned from grade 7, and we learned on how Moses helped them to even cross the Red Sea and any other thing that we learned in grade 7. So you can go back to your notes and remind yourselves about that. Now these Israelites are already here in Canaan. And now that they're in Canaan, they still have God, and they've never seen this God, and they are wondering what is going on. Then God gives them Samuel. Now, who is Samuel? Let's have the background information of who Samuel is and how God used him. Samuel was born from a family of Elkanah. His father was known as Elkanah. Elkanah had 2 wives. He had Peninnah and he also had Hannah. But now the mother of Samuel was Hannah. The mother of Samuel was Hannah. Now, Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not have children. She kept praying to God every day so that God would give her children. Now, one day she went to pray, and the priest here was Eli. Eli was the priest. This temple was in a place known as Shiloh. It was in a place known as Shiloh. Now she went there and she prayed, and God answered her prayer by giving her a son, and the son was named Samuel. Now this is where we get Samuel. So the parents of Samuel were Elkanah and Hannah. I hope you're together up to that point. So I want to say this, when Hannah used to pray, she used to ask God, when you give me this child, I'll take this child to the child. This child will serve you. So immediately Hannah gave birth to Samuel. During the dedication, she took Samuel to the temple, and she dedicated Samuel to the Lord. And Samuel became a prophet, a judge, and also a priest. So with the help of God, Samuel continued leading Israel. Now he continued leading Israel as a judge, and also he helped and communicated to God. He also acted as a mediator between God and the Israelites. I hope you are together up to that point. Very good. I want you to keep in mind that at this point, God was their king, and they had never seen this God. Right? From Egypt up to this point, they've never seen this God. So they kept having a leader, and they kept being told about this God, but they had never seen this God. So as days went by, years went by, Samuel became old. He became old. Now when Samuel became old, he had 2 sons. I want to say that at that point, I've given the background about Samuel, and right now you know who Samuel is. Now, I want us to go to the reasons why the Israelites wanted a king. They wanted a king, and of course, a king has a crown. Good. So I'll be a king for today. I'll be King Juliet, right? Very good. Now, we want to know the reasons for kingship in Israel. Reasons for kingship in Israel. We say that they had an invisible God. They had never seen this God. So they wanted to know more about kingship. That's why they insisted they wanted a king. But we have more reasons as to why they wanted a king. One reason, I say that Samuel was now old. Samuel was now old. And now that Samuel was old, they felt they needed a king. But let us read from the book of 1 Samuel, from chapter 8, 1 Samuel chapter 8, from verse 1 to 9. You can open your Bible, let's read together. When Samuel grew old, he made his sons judges in Israel. The elder son's name was Joel, and the younger one, Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba, but they did not follow their father's example. They were interested only in making money, so they accepted bribes and did not decide cases honestly. Then all leaders of Israel met together, went to Samuel in Ramah, and said to him, "Look, you are getting old, and your sons don't follow your example. So then, appoint a king to rule over us, so that we will have a king as other countries have." Samuel was displeased with this request for a king. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Listen to everything the people say to you. You are not the one they have rejected. I am the one they have rejected as their king. Ever since I brought them out of Egypt, they have turned away from me and worshipped other gods. And now they are doing to you what they have always done to me. So then, listen to them, but give them strict warnings and explain how this king would treat them." That is 1 Samuel chapter 8 from verse 1 to 9. It is giving us reasons as to why the Israelites decided they want a king. Good. Now, we've said that Samuel was getting old, right? Samuel was getting old. And we have these elders who went to meet him in a place known as Ramah. This is where Samuel lived. They went to meet him at a place known as at Ramah. Then they told him, "We can see you are getting very old. Kindly appoint one person to be a king so that he can rule over us." Remember, once again, they knew there is a king, but they had never seen this king. So they wanted a king that they could see. Good. Now, Samuel had two sons. The elder son's name was Joel, and the younger one, Abijah. When Samuel was their leader, he used to do everything that pleased God. But now, when he was getting old, he decided, "Let me take these sons of mine and appoint them so that they can help me." But now, look at these sons, Joel and Abijah. They are not even following what is expected of them as the sons of Samuel. They are not doing what is expected of them. They are not even following God's commandments. So what happens? They were after money and they bribed people. They received bribe and they were very, very corrupt. So the people were not happy with them. That's why the elders went to meet Samuel in Ramah. I hope we are together up to that point. Very good. Now let's continue. That is the first reason as to why these people wanted a king. One, Samuel was getting old. Another one, Samuel's sons, and you say the sons are Joel and Abijah. Joel and Abijah, they were corrupt. They were corrupt. And they received bribes from people. They were just after money, nothing else, just after money. So people were not happy. People were not happy with them. Another reason, the third reason as to why the Israelites wanted a king, they wanted a king they could see and approach. They wanted a king they could see and approach. Why? Because now they had a king, yes, and this king was God, but they had never seen this God. They have never approached him. So they wanted a king that they could see and they could also approach. Another reason as to why the Israelites wanted a king, they wanted a king who would lead them to war. They wanted a king who would lead them to war. Lead them to war, and they will come back victorious, right? Because they had God, yes, but God had never led them to war that they will see and say that we've been led by our king. So they wanted a king that will lead them to war, then they come back victorious. Very good. Another reason as to why these Israelites wanted a king, they wanted a stable political government. They wanted a stable political government ruled by law and order. Ruled by law and order. Very, very good. And finally, they also wanted to be like other nations. Other nations had kings. Other nations, they had kings that they would approach. Other nations had warrior kings that would take them to the battlefield and they would emerge victorious. So they also wanted a king like other nations. So that is our life, other nation. When they came from Egypt to Canaan, they found that we had other nations around them who had kings. So they felt they also needed a king they would approach, they would see, and would lead them in during wars. Very good. Now that marks the end of our strand today. But what have you learned? What have you learned? Can I give you at least 3 seconds to remind yourself? Very good. If you mention at least one point, very, very good. Now, our strand today was the Bible, leadership in Israel. And we want to talk about King Saul. But again, before we get to King Saul, we are moving step by step. We have a background of, before we get to who King Saul is, we want to know who anointed him and everything about King Saul. And this is where we start from. Leadership in Israel, I've talked about Samuel. I've said that the father of Samuel was Elkanah and the mother was Hannah. Very good. Samuel was dedicated to temple, and while he was serving in the temple, this is where God called him. Very good. Now, about that, we've talked about the reasons for kingship in Israel. Why did the Israelites want a king? And I've given some reasons here. One, Samuel was getting old. And now that he was getting old, the Israelites felt that they needed a king. Another reason is Samuel had given out Joel and Abijah to be judges in this place called Beersheba. They were supposed to be judges. They were supposed to help. But what happened? They were very corrupt. They took bribes. They were just after money. And people were not happy about it. So what happened? The elders went to Ramah to meet Samuel. Then when they met Samuel, they told Samuel, you gave us your sons, yes, but your sons are not good enough to be our king. So we want a king. That's another reason as to why they wanted a king. Another reason, they wanted a king, a physical king that they could see and approach in times of need. That's another reason. Another reason is that they wanted a warrior king that would lead them to war. They wanted a warrior king that would lead them to war and bring them victory, just like other nations. Very good. Another reason, as they wanted a stable political government ruled by law and order. They wanted a stable political government that will be ruled by law and order. And finally, they wanted to be like other nations that had kings. Very good. Now, up to that point, I hope you've understood. And if you have any question, you'll write it in the comment section or you can call our number. Now, let's go to the extended activity. Explain why the people were not happy with Samuel appointing his sons as judges of Israel. That's an activity that you're going to do it back at home. The next lesson, I want you to read 1 Samuel chapter 8 from verse 10 to 21. As you get to know the reasons against kingship in Israel. I hope we are together. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Bye-bye till the next time.